Welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast, where experienced professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders based in Kingston upon Thames are invited on to share their story with us. I'm your host, Amir Rochalina.
This week's episode of the Inside Kingston podcast is brought to you by Holland Harnham Wills, a financial planning and wealth management firm based in Kingston upon Thames. Holland Harnham Wills specialises in retirement planning for senior professionals and successful business owners. Visit hhw-uk.com to start feeling more relaxed and confident about your financial future.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. I'm joined today by Julian Carter-Manning. Julian and his business partner, Rory Walker, are the co-founders of Yellow Zebra Safaris, a company offering tailor-made African safari holidays that have been carefully curated by their professional safari experts. What's unique about Julian is how he differentiates his company's offering by emphasizing on delivering peace of mind to his clients on key aspects to their trip to Africa. And be sure to listen to the end, where Julian shares his insights into building a strong team within a niche business, as well as shedding some light into the charitable projects that his company supports in Africa. So whether you're interested in knowing more about African safari experiences, or would like to know more about running a successful niche business within the travel industry, then I hope you enjoy this episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Welcome, Julian Carter-Manning, to the Inside Kingston podcast. Julian, I'm really excited about this conversation because not only is an African safari a trip that's on mine and many of our listeners' bucket list, and it would be great to hear more from you on that, but also I think that our listeners can really benefit from hearing how you, Rory, and your team successfully operate what can perhaps be seen as quite a niche business. But to kick off this conversation, sure, I'd like to go back in time if that's okay. So where did you grow up?
Where did I grow up? I grew up in a Surrey boy, through and through, born in Chertsey Hospital, and spent my time just outside Guildford. Was where I grew up, and I moved up to Birmingham for university, but I've been down in this area. I moved into London for 15 years after university, and then settled in Kingston with Yellow Zebra.
Oh, fantastic! And what did you study at university, Julian?
I studied tourism business management.
All right.
So one of the few people who's ended up actually doing taking a career in what he went to university for. I think we're few and far between. A lot of people seem to do a degree and end up doing something completely different nowadays.
Absolutely. And could you tell us a little bit about your career journey before you set up your business?
Sure. No, safaris are all I've ever done. I say that after university, I had a short stretch. I did 4 months working for another travel agency, and it just didn't really ring true of what I believed that travel or travel design should be all about. I was selling the world, and as much as I had done quite a bit of traveling, I certainly wasn't skillful enough to be selling the world to people who wanted good advice on destinations. So I really struggled with it, and literally sitting behind the desk in a place where people would walk in and ask you about the Caribbean, and I'd never been to the Caribbean, or I'd certainly never been to the islands they were looking for. So I quickly left that. I was there for 4 months or a bit longer, and ended up working for a guy called Mark Harris, runs a company in London. He's a safari specialist, and I joined him. He was a one-man band at the time, and that's really when my safari career began. It was all linked to. I've always watched every National Geographic documentary and read every safari book you can ever do, really. And so, with a degree in tourism and this time spent trying travel agency and being burnt by the idea of not being a specialist, and I wanted to really developed the passion, and so started working for a one-man band, as I say, and worked for him for 10 years, opened up all of his other destinations. He's a Tanzania expert, and I was lucky enough to open up all the other countries where he didn't work, so Botswana, etc. And that really got my knowledge going. And I'd travelled a bit in Africa before I joined him. And so 10 years later, I was struggling with the fact it wasn't my company. I couldn't change things that I wanted and thought needed changing, and so I set up with Rory, one of my best pals from school days. We've known each other since we were very young. I was best man at his wedding. He was best man at mine, and throughout school and university, we never stopped talking about setting up a company together. So eventually we came to it, and it's funny, Rory and I differ on this. I remember a Friday night when I went down to his and wasn't happy with what was going on at my company. He wasn't happy going with what was going on at his. He was working in hotels and working long hours and wanted to change things. And I remember shaking hands and leaving my job on the Monday or handing in my resignation on the Monday. He remembers it slightly different to that, but I like that story. And Yellow Zebra was born.
I think that's fascinating, Julian, and there's quite a bit in that I want to unpeel for our listeners. I teed you up as saying that you guys successfully operate a niche business, and I think the first thing for me that strikes as is absolutely unique in what you guys do is this relentless focus on what you do, which is being specialists in building safaris. So if we bring this conversation up to the present, could you tell us a little bit about Yellow Zebra Safaris today?
Sure. No, I'd be delighted to. It's so I guess a lot of it stems from my time working for that travel agency I mentioned, and realizing, people want to be buying experience and knowledge, and so I've always said that about Yellow Zebra. We're not a selling company. We're very much a company that displays our knowledge to clients in as much detail as we possibly can, and leaves them to make the right decision. And so the guys here, and it is very niche, what we do especially, and we make it even more niche by every person who designs a trip for our clients who works at Yellow Zebra is either a professional safari guide, a camp manager, or a bush pilot, or someone who was born and raised in Africa. And it's that level of detail that really guarantees ultimately the best itinerary design. And we then have a huge wealth of experience of people who've run operations for companies in Africa and on the ground, and they effectively look after you whilst you're away as well. So really, it's the level of experience the guys have got here. Their niche, working in as a guide, for example, in the Serengeti, means they're now specialists for Yellow Zebra, selling safaris to the Serengeti.
Wow.
So it is very. We don't know of another company who approaches safari design in the same way, and I'm certainly a big believer in the fact that it is the best way to design a trip is by someone who's obviously done more than just a trip to Tanzania. They've actually worked on the ground.
When it comes to building safari trips for your clients, what are some of your company's beliefs? I mean, you've mentioned it already in terms of on-the-ground experience, but how else do you and your team think about providing that experience to the client?
It's really about putting you in the right place, the right time of year, in the right camps, run by properties that have the best guides. And it sounds cliche to say, but a safari really is all about the quality of the guide. And there are many camps. For example, using the Serengeti again as the example, there are many camps in the Serengeti, and some very expensive properties that have average guiding. So it's our experience of working on the ground, knowing the guides, doing trips out there all the time, that keeps our knowledge up to date. And then so the guides is really important. Ethical companies that we use, who help the wildlife, help the communities outside the Serengeti, for example. They're a real priority of the companies that we like to work with. But it's that level of knowledge throughout, and really just simply business best practice of using great companies who are doing the right thing for Africa that again guarantees that you're having a great trip, and it can be made better if you're ticking the right boxes. I've always said Africa is an amazing place to travel to, irrelevant of how much money you get and wherever you're going. There's definitely an argument to say that that's right. You can have a herd of elephant walking around your tent at night, and that blows most people's minds. But there's a way of making it even better. So a lot of people go to Africa and don't really realise what they're missing out on. But we're specialists in really making the most of it.
So tell me a little bit about how you work with building relationships with these guides, because of course this is a very a relationship that's built on trust both ways, I bet, right?
Completely. No, that's absolutely right. And at the end of the day, this business is fundamentally about the relationships that you have on the ground with people in Africa. And it's those relationships that mean you end up being given the better guides by companies. And I can't stress it enough. Africa is absolutely all about the relationships. If you're the best properties are the small owner-run camps where they're literally being run like I describe a lot of safaris to people as I actually quite often people hear me in the office. I compare it to traveling to Paris, sorry. And if you're staying by the Eiffel Tower, you can get an amazing, beautiful, luxury-looking hotel that maybe doesn't have much character and soul. Whereas if you were to go and stay in the back streets of somewhere like Montmartre, you'll find a boutique little property that's run by an owner, where the owner's mother is effectively designing the menu in their restaurant, and there's something special about it.
Yeah.
And that's really, it's that relationship. If you can crack that, and I can get you a guide in the Serengeti who's running the same boutique style of property as you'll find in the back streets of Paris, then that's the magic.
Amazing.
Obviously, you can stay in hugely expensive camps in the Serengeti, and you don't get as much of that wow factor, that general level of experience that people write home about. It's that people remember, not the 5-star luxury lodge.
And more than ever, Julian, I think folks are really trying to spend their money on experiences rather than material goods. I mean, every publication out there, be it finance publication or be it lifestyle publication, they're all writing about how folks are trying to seek experiences, and especially the younger folks, aren't they? So I'm sure that plays right into your niche and the way you aim to provide that trip to a family or to a couple or to whoever.
100%. It's so true. I mean, I was only in Africa 2 weeks ago, and staying in a super luxury lodge, and it was a new place. I was just checking it out to see these amazing trips that we do to go and check out whether these properties are good enough and how good they really are. And there was a couple who were traveling there, and they were sitting down at the dinner table talking about all these amazing experiences they've had. They have gone to the best properties, in the sense of the most expensive properties anywhere across the continent. They ticked them all off, and there really wasn't anything else they could do at the mega end of the price bracket. And we started chatting, and they said to me, "Have you been to any of these?" And actually, I've been to all of the properties they'd gone to, and they said, "Which of those would you put as your best properties?" And I said, "Well, I cherry picked one of them," but I said, "But actually, my best properties in Africa are none of the ones you've just spoken about."
Wow.
And it made them realize that they thought they were traveling to all of the best places, but actually a genuine expert as such would say they're missing out on what really makes Africa special. This is these small owner-run camps in the middle of nowhere, where they're not focusing on the 5-star hospitality experience. They're focusing much more on the experience, that experiential experience that you were just talking about. And that's what amazing people running amazing camps with just passion and amazing locations and guaranteeing best game, and that's really what it's all about. So it's quite funny. These guys took my business card and were like, "Right, we'll give your style of safari a go next time." And I used to look after. I still am friends with a chap who was Richard Branson's lawyer actually years ago,
right?
And they travelled with me on a trip to Africa on one of these different styles of trips, and to this day they still say the best trip of their lives. And they've travelled all across the world to the most luxurious properties, and that's the magic. It really is.
And I can completely resonate with what you're saying in my field, which has nothing to do with safaris and its finance, but just how the parallels between you can pay for the most expensive product or the most expensive fund, and that doesn't necessarily give you the same experience as using an expert to do something that's relevant specifically to your situation. And I'm sure our listeners can think about examples in their own professional fields as well. Julian, I recently heard a phrase, do well by doing good. And knowing that you guys are really passionate about conservation and giving back to African communities, I was wondering, how do you guys tie in your charitable beliefs with your business practices?
No, that's a great question. It's fundamentally boils down to a couple of factors. But first of all, you've got to know inside out the companies that you're dealing with and whether they are genuinely doing good conservation practices, or whether it's what I've always called greenwashing. Every company will say they're doing a lot for conservation and communities and habitats, but actually, when you break it down, you find out it's nothing more than a nice front page on a brochure. So really, it's about investigating every company and finding out what they're dealing with and believing and making sure that we know what they're doing really does make a difference. And then we start working with them. So the first thing is you're choosing the right camps, and you're working with them. You're sending clients to those properties anyway. But really, that should, I've always believed that should be as standard what a company should be doing for its clients. If you're in a Africa safari specialist, then you should be designing trips to ethical, responsible companies. So I sort of see that as a byproduct of just designing a great trip. So what we do as well, we've always worked with. We really split our conservation and charity projects up to working with people and to working with wildlife. And for people, we've over the last 3 or 4 years now, we've worked with a company in Cape Town called Project Playground. Amazing company who do a lot for seriously disadvantaged children, and giving them the basis and foundations to get back into society as a whole, giving them a chance that they really don't have until they've spent time with this company.
Wow.
What we love about these guys is we quite often get asked to go and see our charity projects. So our clients want to go and see the charity projects. They're going to want to go and work in the school that we work with. And it's like it sounds great on the outset, but if you flip it around the other way, and if your children were in a school and then some tourists came in and wanted to visit them in the school, it's just a bit strange, really, if you think about it.
True.
And so we're not ambassadors of that style of trip at all. And so none of our clients can actually visit Project Playground because they don't believe in having tourists come and visit the project. But they're doing great things, and they're doing it without people distracting these children, basically.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense to me.
You see, sorry, I think I've got a bit jumbled there, but I hope you see where I'm coming from. So we try to work with projects like that, and then we've always worked for wildlife. We work with a number of different projects actually, but the one that's closest to our hearts is an anti-poaching outfit that were based in Dar es Salaam, the port in Tanzania, which is one of the 2 biggest ports in East Africa. East Africa is where the vast majority of the elephant poaching is going on. So all of your ivory is being smuggled out of places like Dar es Salaam. And we found this amazing chap who was setting up some dogs that specialize in ivory and actually pangolin. So these sniffer dogs who were based in the port, and they were sniffing out pangolin, which is the world's most trafficked animal, as well as ivory. And so we started working with him, not right from the beginning of his company, but certainly early days. And over the years, we've seen that being bought up by a company called the PAMS Foundation, who are basically the best company that I know of for elephant work. And they've now taken on Team Rocker, it's the name of the dog company, and they've now swallowed it up as part of the PAMS Foundation, and these dogs are slowly becoming more and more famous. And they're just an incredible little unit. They're doing an amazing good across Tanzania specifically, and so that's the wildlife arm of what we support, and so we donate to them and Project Playground every year. And it's all out of our profits. It's nothing done on a surcharge to a client's holiday or anything. And so those 2 things are what we really focus on. But no, hugely important. We'll never stop doing it. It's integral. It's core to the very belief of the company.
Yeah, and this is well. Firstly, that's really fascinating stuff, and it's great to get an insight of how these projects sometimes work on the ground. Just that little insight on how you said, how would I feel if tourists were visiting my children's school? Well, actually, I'll just as with you, I'll just prefer that there's a great project, offering my children or helping my children have a great education, and that would do it for me. So that was a really interesting insight there, Julian. Just as a segue on something you mentioned beforehand. I also not only notice on the way you're talking about your team here on this conversation, but also on your website, you guys are really proud of the expertise and that expert team that you've built within your company. Could you share with our listeners your thought process on building and nurturing a team?
Sure. First of all, to get people with really good foundations, it's I noticed when I was traveling in Africa the first few years in the business, I've just found people on the ground who had a lot of knowledge, and so working in these camps or the pilots or whatever, they had incredible knowledge of their destinations, but really they weren't doing that much with it actually. And so the belief that we've always had is to get those guys on board with these amazing foundations, and then start training them up in the way that we sell safaris. So they always go out to the countries and see all these camps and properties, and when you combine those two bits of experiences together, then you end up with the best consultant. But so that's the core. That's why it benefits that's why it benefits our clients, because they've just got so much experience, and we keep on consistently developing that. Huge training systems in-house at Yellow Zebra as everyone imparts their knowledge to everyone else, and everyone grows internally. But the team itself, I should probably put you through to one of our team members and see what they have to say about Rory and I. But we do lots of social events, parties. We do things for people's birthdays. They've been here for 3 years and 5 years, and we play music in the office. We have social days all the time, as I said, and it's that focus on the environment here and the team that hopefully keeps everyone happy, and therefore they stay working for the company. We try and be as flexible as we can with people who want days off or for whatever reason, and try and keep everyone just as happy as you can be working here. And if we're doing that, fundamentally paying well and just looking after them and showing them that they've got a career here, then there's no reason for them to move on, because the last thing that I want is for people to move on. We invest so much into them, and then they would move on. And we've had a 5% staff turnover since we started the company, and we're really proud of that. It's incredibly low in the industry, and mainly actually the people we've lost have gone back to Africa to guide the safaris again. So we can't really help but lose them. But no, fundamentally the team is all about just enjoying a job, and therefore, because of how much they enjoy the job, they're working hard.
And Julian, for the benefit of our business owner listeners who are perhaps working in their own niche or their own competitive fields, what are the methods that you guys use for attracting new customers and actually gaining new business?
The methods that we use for attracting new business, sorry.
Yeah. So, what sort of marketing do you guys do? Anything?
Sure.
That just to sort of, given that you work in a way that is all about your specialism, how do you highlight that to the world to attract new customers and gain new business?
Sure. Well, we're fundamentally an internet-based company, and so we market a lot on the search engines, so Google, Bing, etc. That really makes the phone ring in the first place. From that point on, it's about blowing them away so that they book through us. And then when they come back, either they go to Africa again, or they refer us to their friends and family or whoever. So it's really that repeats and referrals, which is so important. And we because it doesn't cost anything to market to that client. There's no cost of getting someone to have a great holiday and then referring to their friends. So if we're doing a great job in the first place, their clients are getting a great holiday, then they'll refer naturally. But I can't. Repeats and referrals in the business like ours are what it's really all about, and the only way you can really encourage that is by doing a damn good job in the first place.
You know what I really like
so
about that, Julian, is that any other business owner listening to that can replicate that in their own field, because what they need to do and what we all need to do is just make sure that whatever service we're offering is spot on. And then when we do marketing, be it through the internet or local chambers of commerce or a mixture of all of those, to attract folks into the business, they then experience that great service that is spot on, and then they repeat by either becoming an ongoing customer or by referring. So it's having systems in place and then just working hard to make sure that that proposition is actually catering for what the client wants. I really like that. There is no magic wand or magic secret to it. It's just smart thinking and hard work, right?
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely spot on. The reality is a lot of safari companies are doing very similar things. They sell the same properties, for example. So it's not, we've never really believed in doing anything fundamentally differently to other companies, apart from the quality of the specialists that we've got in the office. But it's really just about doing everything as well as we possibly can, and doing it better than others. So it's the simples of business, the simples of running a safari company, the basics, of running a safari company. If you do it right, you do them incredibly well, then yeah, I think the rest takes care of itself as such.
I like that.
So it's a constant mission to keep as good as we possibly can be. But yeah, I can see it applies to all levels of business, really. And I think a lot of people just forget that. They look for some crazy differentiator, and it's not necessarily what they should be focusing on. Should just be focusing on the foundations of your business.
Absolutely. Julian, what are some of the key business lessons that you've learned throughout your life?
The key business lessons that I will never always get on with my business partner, Rory. No, we've had so we've been to in business together just short of 8 years, and it's so amusing to see the peaks and troughs that we've had. And actually, I don't know, it's taken us probably about 5 years before we've both completely understood the way that each other work. Mm-hmm. I think that was a lesson. We thought that even going into business with your best friend is not necessarily the best of ideas, but there is a level of trust and loyalty and respect that you just cannot replicate. So I'm an ambassador of it. I think a lot of people are worried about setting up business for people that they know and friends, but I think it gives you a lot more than it takes away, actually. I'm a big ambassador of it. So one of the other lessons I've learned in business that you have to go with the punches every now and then. Things are going to change on a daily basis. You have to be accepting and ready for that change. Things are never going to go as smoothly as you want. And if you're not ready for those changes and not willing to tackle them, I think that's what business is all about, really. It's tackling the changes that come your way. Things come out the blue all the time, and I'm very lucky. Rory's very good at tackling things when things come out the blue, and we face it all together and get through it. Business never goes as smoothly as you expect. I have a very funny forecast that I did when we were setting up the company, so our business plan for the first 5 years. Right. I can honestly say it could not be more different to where we are now. So I find it very, very difficult for companies to be doing accurate forecasts in the first 5 years. But those forecasts that you do set you for good foundations. So they are, even if they're wrong, they're incredibly important to get you both working in the same way. The company knows where it's going, and then it changes as it goes. New forecasts are made, and they may be inaccurate again, but still, you've made the forecast, you've got a foundation, you're heading in the right direction. I think that business has been really important. For myself and Rory, I think we sum up a lot of businesses. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, if I'd set this company up on my own, Rory has got a very good business mind behind him. And so when we were setting up in the first place, he was able to take care of a lot of the admin that's needed to set up a business, the accountancy side of setting up a business. And I was free to sell holidays. I was free to design safaris. And so the combination of the two together was absolutely integral to our success. So I think everyone setting up a business, it's very easy to go and sell anything, but it's difficult to make sure that your accounts are going in the right way, that you're doing everything in the right legal means. And I certainly question whether I would have been able to do it on my own. So having two people with different skill sets has been incredibly important.
That's really fascinating, Julian. When you look back at your career journey to date, what are you most proud of?
I would say, it sounds cliche to say it, but giving the people here who love their jobs and are absolutely the sort of the spine of Yellow Zebra. They've been here since the beginning. They're now directors of the company underneath Rory and I, and seeing them develop in their roles, seeing them want to work for the company and not wanting to work anywhere else. I think sort of the brand that we've created and the fact that the people who work here want to stay working here is probably the thing I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
And being able to do just amazing safaris for people going away, having these genuine holidays of a lifetime, and we get this all the time. As in, your trip changed our life.
Wow.
And that's it. It's actually we've just done a new rebrand of our website, and it's now Yellow Zebra Life Changing Safaris. And it's funny because it's something that we came up with in the rebrand process, and then we questioned it because it's almost a bit cliche to say something so bold. Mm-hmm. And then over the next month, when we were going through it, we must have had 3 or 4 clients phoning up or writing on their reviews that it had changed their life. Yeah. So we're incredibly lucky to be doing such amazing trips to amazing destinations, amazing products, and people are having just the most amazing experiences. So I think it's those two things together. It's the experience we can give our team working at Yellow Zebra, and it's our clients' experiences when they're on the ground in Africa and what they remember. I mean, yeah, it's we're very proud of that.
Julian, what next for you and your business? Are there any projects in the pipeline that you can tell us about?
New destinations. We're currently toying with the idea of doing new destinations, and that's never outside Africa. We're very, very happy being a safari specialist. Mm-hmm. But we've always believed in being incredibly good in a fewer destinations rather than being average in all the destinations we could sell. And so destinations like Ethiopia, Malawi, and Madagascar are the 3 that we're running around with in our minds at the moment. So opening up those destinations is definitely in the pipeline for the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. Our systems which back up our sales guys here and our team need the best systems to be giving clients the quickest, the best response times. We have a big goal for next year of doing a portal, which is one of these online areas where you as a client can go in and really explore your private portal that talks through all of the trips you've done or are considering, and just gets you much more in touch with the company as a whole. So there's quite a bit of tech going on in the background of Yellow Zebra, where our systems are hugely important to the way we work. What can I think of? We need a couple of specialists at the moment, actually. If you know anyone who's got the experience that we need, it's a very small pot. That's our problem. Finding new staff who've got the experience we need is very difficult. So we're looking for new staff for sales at the moment. So let me know. Yeah. That's a project in itself.
Yeah, the listeners have heard it here first. Julian, for a lot of our listeners, even myself here, who haven't experienced an African safari, there might be some concerns around security, personal security, that is, in the African continent. How do you guys cater for that for your clients?
That's a really interesting point. Security and safety is well, firstly, it's first in the minds of clients a lot of the time. And it's certainly in the minds of how we work on the ground. And to be honest, it's one of our differentiators from our competition. And so we actually we employ a company that independently vets every single lodge that we sell. Mm-hmm. Now, I know of 5 or 6 safari companies in the world that do this. And that's a really good start, because there's a lot going on in these African lodges that you don't necessarily know, and so having an independent company vet these properties, their health and safety standards, etc., is really good for a sort of an extra foundation for us, and therefore our clients. But then when you are away on one of our trips, we're the only company I know that combines that by giving you a completely different level of support whilst you're away. And that is, well, firstly, we have a 365-day, 24 hours a day manned emergency line that's literally manned by our best consultants here. So, and again, they're the people who've worked on the ground, so they know what to do when it all goes wrong as such. And I'm afraid to say, I've been in this industry for 20 years and I have seen things go very badly wrong. From a friend of mine whose child had appendicitis and was in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and they had to get them out and get them to good local hospital, and there wasn't one, and they therefore had to fly them a few countries away to make sure that this kid got the right level of care. And that showed me how important it is to not rely on the lodges, their health and safety standards, their first aid staff members are not necessarily as good as you can need. So we employ a chap who he's a chief medical officer, and he's the most experienced national parks, so safari parks doctor that I know. He's set up a lot of the programs across Africa for safaris and for people on the ground there. We have him on a retainer basis, and he works with all of our clients when they have anything from not feeling great, stomach bugs, to something more serious than that. Yeah. And so we have to be ready for the worst case scenario. This chap is the best person I know. He will phone you. We'd link you up wherever you are so that you can get advice from him. And people need that. People don't understand that it can go quickly wrong in Africa. It goes wrong very, very rarely on the trips that we sell. But it can go wrong. And when it's going wrong, you need to have people who are telling you, giving you the right message, making you feel assured that the right decisions are being made by your insurers, for example, and by the lodges and things like that. So no, our chief medical officer is something that I've not seen anywhere else in the industry. And it makes a huge difference when it happens, and it also gives clients a level of belief that we're doing the right thing in the first place. So no, he's the one thing that I think separates us from our competition. Actually, I think obviously our specialists are great; they've got unique knowledge and conservation charity focus. Well, to be honest, I believe that any company should be doing that anyway. Yeah. Actually, tangible difference that you get through traveling with Yellow Zebra is the level of backup support when you're on the ground in Africa.
As we start to wrap up, I'd like to ask you a few quick-fire questions that our listeners are always interested in. So, Julian, what do you do to relax outside the office?
A lot of sport is that's what I do. But I mean, I'm very, very lucky as well, just simply to be incredibly passionate about safaris, full stop. So I actually spend a lot of my time relaxing, thinking about safaris. It sounds a bit cliche to say it, but I'm traveling to Africa a lot, and it's a passion. I just don't see it as work. So I actually relax out of the office whilst I'm either on safari or reading books on it. But no, travel as a whole, I've always been a big traveller at heart. I mean, fundamentally, that's why I set up a travel company. Yeah. So myself and my wife, we travel a lot, and we try and travel outside of Africa as well, because the reality is when I'm in Africa, I'm always working. So as much as I love it, it's amazing how if I go to another part of the world, I can completely switch off in a way that I definitely don't when I'm traveling on safari. So know that. Sport is huge, and family.
Are there any movies or TV shows that you've recently watched that you would recommend to our listeners?
Movies or TV shows, 100%. Obviously, everyone must have seen The Lion King by now. If they haven't, they should go and see it. So no, myself and my wife did a lot of theatre trips actually, and we went to see The Lion King, I think, for the third time recently. So no, big fan of The Lion King. And I watch a lot of National Geographic documentaries. But I've never stopped watching National Geographic. My personal guilty pleasure as such is a podcast called The Joe Rogan Show. was the Joe Rogan Experience. If you ever heard of that, and it's an American chap who interviews some of the most amazing names in business and politics and anything from sport to health and he interviews a lady called Rhonda Patrick, and she's done 7 or 8 2 to 3 hour long podcasts on his show now. He describes her, and this is a chap who's incredibly connected. It's one of the most famous podcasts in the world, who, for the people who don't know it, one of the largest audiences. And this lady is, she's a scientist. She specializes in anti-aging, which is very relevant for me at the moment. But she's an incredible lady, and she will talk through really how to look after yourself and plan for the future as such. And I think that's the most incredible podcast. Her podcast is called, I think it's Found My Fitness.
Okay.
And it's Rhonda Patrick, Found My Fitness, and that is just incredible stuff to listen to.
And for the benefit of our listeners, I'll make sure I link up to those resources on the show notes. Finally, where can people go to find out about you and your business?
Definitely yellowzebrasafaris.com. That's the best place to start researching into us. We've got Instagram accounts, Facebook accounts, but fundamentally it's the website. But the best thing that anyone can do about finding out about Yellow Zebra is simply to pick up the phone. You could, to be honest, get lost in our website. We have so many destinations there, so many camps, lodges, ideas, and I think the best thing anyone can ever do is pick up the phone and have a 15-minute chat with me or Rory or whoever, and just talk through Yellow Zebra as a whole. There's no substitute to time on the phone, and if we're local, as obviously we are with this podcast, then just to pop into our offices, sit down and have a chat. We're open all the time, so and welcoming anyone in whenever they want. So people can walk in off the street and sit down and have a cup of tea, and we'll happily chat Africa or whatever.
Julian, thank you for joining us here on the Inside Kingston podcast. It's been a pleasure getting to know your story.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much, and thanks to all listeners. I appreciate it.
That wraps up another episode of the Inside Kingston podcast. Make sure to check out our guests' website, pay them a visit, and help spread the word about what they're doing. If you have any questions or know someone who should be a guest on the show, please feel free to get in touch. I would also love it if you could go to iTunes and leave us a review and a 5-star rating. We work hard to bring on some great guests, and getting a review from you is one way to help the podcast rate well on iTunes so that others can find and enjoy the show too. Thanks for listening.